Welcome to our home today in our teaching. We're glad you're here. We're all happy to be here. We're eating homemade apple pie and donuts and coffee. So if you like that, come next Sunday. We'll have something for you. But it is good to be here, and we appreciate all of you that's following on Facebook and also on YouTube. I've been getting a lot of nice comments on YouTube, and I appreciate those. And we just bless you. We're continuing our study on the restoration and the remnant of those whom religiosity failed. You know, some people don't quite understand that. Some people are happy in religiosity, so that's all right. But some people were looking for more and they didn't get the more. So that's what we're after today. So we're going through Isaiah 11, and we're in that story. It talked about Father reaching out his hand one more time to draw back all the people that had left in the physical story, had left Israel and went off to other cities. And so we're giving the spiritual, the metaphysical, the allegorical, the metaphorical, the parabolical understanding of all these verses. And sometimes those words scare people, but they're nothing to be afraid of. And because the Bible talks about there's a place in Job, it says, surely there's a place where the silver is fine and the gold is mined. And I've shared that before, but that's talking about the word silver. They've always used it as redemption, and redemption means kinship. So surely there's a place in the Bible where we can find out that we're all one with Father, right? And gold is divine nature, so the same thing, that we have a divine nature. And it's not necessarily been hidden, but it's been right below the surface. And very few people, very few ministry are willing to go below the surface of the word and find out the truth of it. I have a person that's been messaging me from somewhere in the world, I don't know where, not in the United States, but very concerned with what I'm teaching, and they think I need to get born again and confess Jesus Christ as Lord of my life and worship Jesus, not God. And I just said I did that when I was a child. You know, so...
Already got that t-shirt.
You what?
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Been there, done that.
But isn't that
So,
contradictory to what the Bible teaches?
If what?
Isn't that contradictory to what the Bible teaches?
Yes, it is. Very contradictory. But religion takes it and projects, like the penal substitutionary doctrine. My pastor, my last pastor that I had, they take that and they project that into every story in the Bible. And so if you believe in the redemptive work of Jesus Christ, you believe that he had to come to save us and everything else, then there's all kinds of places in the Bible that you can say, well, that points to that. Like today, what we're teaching today, we used to teach this section about when Moses was in with the children of Israel. The children of Israel were murmuring and complaining about manna. They were tired of it, not realizing that it was everything that they needed. And they began to murmur and complain. And it says God sent serpents into the camp and bit them. And they were dying. And Moses asked God, what can I do? What should I do? And he repented for him. And then God said, take a pole, according to what this said, and put a brazen snake around it. And anybody that will look at that will live. Which is kind of odd story, isn't it? Which I don't believe it. So if you believe in the redemptive work of Jesus Christ and the cross is our salvation, then you could say that's a picture of the cross. And if you look at the cross, you'll be healed of whatever you have. Well, I looked at the cross, and I'm not mocking it, but I did what they said, and I still struggled. And most people do in Christianity. And most people pray and ask for something, and it doesn't necessarily come, but they prayed and they just don't question, they just go on and on and on, doing the same things over and over and over. So that's why we're looking through this particular story, because I really am wanting to show, and I feel Father prompted me to do this, is to reveal what it takes to get people to come back to understand the truth of the Word and the truth of the Spirit of God and who Father is. Because a lot of us, you know, we've had all different kinds of perceptions. So that being said, we'll start. In chapter 9, Isaiah 11, I put 12 through 13, but it's just 12. It says, and Father shall set up, and actually said it set up an ensign, but I put it in parentheses because Father shall set up a people for the nations and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. And I believe I have said that I believe this is the age of Aquarius, and I do. I believe there's a massive amount of learning going on in every field there is. Political, well, I don't know about political, but they will learn. And the religious system, the financial system, the medical, it's unbelievable what the medical people are doing today. You know, I'm involved in going to a lot of doctors, and I cannot believe the stuff that they're coming up with. But I do believe they're going to very quickly turn around and come up with cures. I do believe that. And so I believe Father's doing that everywhere, and also doing it with the people, bringing them back to a desire for spirit, not necessarily for religion. And there's nothing wrong with us gathering together in houses and churches. And we do need church buildings, because if we have children, we want to bring our children with us, right? You know, we don't allow children here. No, I'm kidding you. But I would like to be able to have children to come. I'd like to have teenagers to come, you know. And so, but Father's doing that, and people are waking up. And this instance speaks, Isaiah spoke of, was Jesus. He was raised up to Israel, if you would. Meaning he was lifted in his awareness, and then he was sent to people to help set them free from religiosity. So everybody can be an ensign. Jesus was an ensign. We are an ensign, right? We've been lifted up in our awareness. And, you know, speaking of that, when I talk about being lifted up, when I talk about our conscious awareness, evolving, all those things, I'm not saying we're better than somebody else. I'm not saying that I'm special. I'm just like you. We're all the same thing, but my awareness is going greater and greater and greater. That doesn't make me better than you. Yeah. And if I've studied all my life, which I have, and you haven't got to because you've been working, doing other, I'm still not better than you. Right. We're all the same, but I just have a greater awareness right now. But my heart is to help you have that awareness, and where you can go into your world.
And then hopefully next year we'll understand even more.
More and more, because it's inexhaustible. You're right. So Jesus was an ensign, but see, from that time to Jesus, I believe there were more ensigns that came to the children of Israel. I believe there were more branchmen that came. I believe there were more comforter messengers that came, but they still didn't listen. They still didn't listen. And Jesus came, and did they listen? No, they didn't listen to him, and that's why he had to leave, and that's why he equipped Paul and John to teach them truth. And I believe from that point on, I believe the disciples begin to understand more and more and more. Somebody, I think it was on Ecclesia last week, that asked me about or maybe they called me, they asked me when they were in the upper room and the flames of fire were going around their head. Well, if you remember the word fire, anybody remember what the word fire means? Huh? The Logos. It's God said to Jeremiah, I make my messengers flames of fire. And also he says, my word is not my word of fire. So what was happening to them, they were thinking about the things that Jesus said, and Spirit quickened them, and they begin to, around their head, around their awareness, they begin to start to understand, oh, this is what this means. This is what he was saying. And they begin to be equipped with that. And that's why they were able to go out and begin to preach the truth and the good news. So the writer of the translations of the book of Numbers wrote again about these serpents against the children of Israel, and they were murmuring and complaining. And so Jesus really being exalted among the people, being lifted up, if you would. He was lifted up on a torturous cross, and he did that to free us from negative thoughts, negative beliefs, and emotions that plagued their thoughts when they were disconnected from the divine source. These people knew nothing about God. Can you imagine that? For thousands of years, these people and the majority of the world knew nothing about God whatsoever, except for God was another God just like the rest of the gods. And they literally feared God. And they were taught to fear God. And that's why in our Bible, many times it says the fear of the Lord. And when you look that up in the Greek or the Hebrew, it says the reverence of the Lord, not the fear. You know, I reverence Father. I reverence Spirit. I also reverence Jesus. And I also reverence you. And there's no place in the Bible that we should fear, because the Bible also says that God is not the author of fear. So where does fear come from? It comes from man. Man whose breath is in his nostrils. So when I told this woman that I did this when I was a child, I immediately thought of the Apostle Paul saying this. He said in 1 Corinthians 3:11, he said, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. That's a pretty powerful statement. And to say to somebody that they're childish, it's not really an insult. It really means your awareness is childish. A child is wanting stuff all the time, right? They're needing help all the time, constantly. But when you become a man, you begin to live out of who you are. And so searching the Greek words and what Paul said, it was interesting to discover the word child comes from NT 3516, which is the Greek word, and it's nepios, Nepios, and it's pronounced nepios, and it means not speaking, not able to speak, right? It means an infant. It means figuratively of simple-minded person, or we could say a carnally mindful person. So as far as what Paul's talking about, that's a child. And if you remember, what he used for 3 levels of spiritual maturity is little children, sons, and fathers. So he spoke to people who had a little child mentality or awareness. They couldn't speak of these things. And I've talked about that before with my son-in-law, John Matlock. John knows everything there is about football. I mean, everything. He knows the players' names, all of it. When I, in his presence, and him and his brothers start talking about football, I can't speak. I'm a child in that area. And so that's a great picture of this. So these were people that had no understanding of spiritual things. At that time, he said he talked as a simple-minded person. He talked as a carnally-minded person. And that was when he was a Pharisee. That's when he was a doctorate of the law. But just because you're a doctorate of the law does not mean you have any spiritual understanding whatsoever. And so he recognized that. And that's later on he said he considered all that to be dung. It wasn't worth anything. So what happened with Paul is he had a suddenly, all of a sudden I call it a suddenly, he had an experience with Father, and he was knocked off his religious high horse. What was that? Oh, the coffee delivery. He was knocked off of his religious high horse because it said he fell off of his horse. So that's a type of that. By hearing the voice of one. I mean, have you ever really heard Spirit talk to you? You absolutely knew it was Spirit. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's an intimate moment. It's a cherished moment, and you want more and more of it. I love sitting in my office and I hear Spirit speak to me. Donna was up most of the night concerned about my sister. She's in a rest home and she's in a lot of trouble, but Spirit began to speak to her. And we do have Spirit within inside of us, and we can hear truth, and it is powerful. So what happened is he heard the voice of one from Jesus, and that great light of revelation is what closed his eyes, because the Bible says that he was blinded. I don't know that he was physically blinded, but his eyes were closed to all his religious teaching. That's what's more important than that. And after Jesus taught him in the scenes, because he took him out into the desert, that's when he became a man, and there's no gender implied. And that's what we want to do. We want to become a man. We want to become grown up in all this awareness that Father is giving us, so we can go forth and help other people. So 1 Corinthians 13:11, the spiritual meaning of Paul becoming a man after thinking and speaking as a child can be interpreted as a metaphor for spiritual maturity and growth. And Paul's reference to putting away childish things symbolizes the need for believers to develop this understanding of faith in Father's faith in them. Put away childish things like, oh, God doesn't love me, God doesn't care for me. Well, that's a child mentality. That's a carnal mentality. You don't know God if you say that. So,
do you need something hot to drink?
I probably wouldn't hurt. You can pull that table over. I need to quit drinking coffee before I teach. It's that cream. But when you put faith in Father's faith in you, then you can boldly enter into being the throne room of God. There's a scripture that says, let us boldly enter into the throne room of God. Well, we are the throne room of God. We are God's dwelling place. And when that happens, then we can boldly say, I am staying in contact with the divine mind. You really don't have to say, how do I get in contact? You already have contact. You just do it by meditation. You do it by being quiet. You just do it by listening all the time. When you're driving, whatever you're doing, you listen and you hear the voice of Spirit say, this is the way, walk you in it. Literally, you can hear, Christopher, you can hear, don't drive down that road. Or you can turn by mistake and you can either say, crap, why did I do that? Or you can say, there's a reason for that. And then sometimes you might find out a mile down the road there was a massive car wreck. You don't know, but what we're looking for more, we do get that kind of direction, but this direction that we need is taking us through the Word of God, taking us through the comforter messengers that we're listening to, and help us to connect with that, help it to become a reality, and then we leave behind immature or superficial thinking, and we embrace more of the Logos. A lot of us still have a lot of superficial thinking. A lot of us still put our dependency on other things rather than Spirit, and it's hard to do sometimes when you say, you got enough money in the bank that you don't have to worry about anything or whatever, and that's where you put your faith. Well, what happens when all that money goes away? And it can happen. Christopher's a businessman. You do investments. You know how easy it is just to be gone just like that overnight. And so you put a lot of faith in that. But if you put your faith in Father, nothing's going to go away, because what we have from Father is eternal. And I'm not saying don't invest money or do things like that, but it's important for us to realize that that's not our faith. But we can use spiritual wisdom to help our business prosper and to make right decisions and do right things. When we look to Spirit within with reverence, then we're reminded to lift our consciousness above this illusion of fear, to lift our consciousness above the illusion of doubt and worry and all those other things, because they're just an illusion. We don't have any reason whatsoever to worry, because Father is our source, right? Father is our way. Jesus said, I'm here to reveal to you the way, the truth, and the life. And he was revealing to us how we should live with everything that comes against us. And he had a lot come against him. He was treated very bad, but he knew who he was. So he aligned himself with his divine mind, and that brought harmony to himself. It brought health to himself. And so nothing could enter into his visible spirit. And the Bible says there's nothing, no weapon formed against us can prosper whatsoever. And I believe that. The only way it can prosper is if you allow it to. And how would you allow it to? You dwell on it. You worry about it. You think about it. Somebody says something bad about you, and then you begin to dwell on it. And all of a sudden anger comes in. All of a sudden you feel like you have to defend yourself, right? And it causes all kinds of problems in life. So we turn our attention inward and upward to divine presence within us as us. Drag that table. Thank you for fixing that, baby.
It's really hot right now, though.
I'll still take a little sip.
I might need to put ice in it.
It's that hot, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's hot.
I told you.
No, it's okay. So, in our past teachings, we taught Isaiah chapter 11 from the redemptive view. And it was really good back then because we'd never heard that before. But it was all about the penal substitutionary doctrine. And it was all about the redemptive view. And the truth is, neither of those are true. And it's very hard to let go of. I have a lot of brethren, and I'm not talking about just men, but women that I grew up with Brother Garner. And it's very difficult when you realize that everything that you ever thought was true is not true anymore. And I have people ask me that all the time. I had a gentleman call me the other day, I think it's Mike Tate, and he asked me a few questions, and he shouldn't have done that because the river started flowing. That it's just like, you mean everything that I've ever believed is wrong? And I said, yep, it really is. And I was able to show him in the scripture, and he wants more. But it is hard, and I think sometimes if you're not really listening to Spirit and you try to help somebody and they're not ready, I think we put great harm on them. We hurt them. And that's why we have to listen to Spirit. And I believe that when the Bible talks about how he will open us up in Malachi, he opens us up as a wind of heaven, and he pours out of us a blessing that's not room enough to receive in just one person. You've got so much in you. It's just this person can have some, this person, and you have to let Father do the opening up. And I think it was Esther. Now, Esther said she wanted to join a group because she just wants to be able to share what she knows, what she's learning. And I don't know of any group to do that on. I really don't, because not a lot of people are ready for it. But you have to listen, and you really will hear a prompting. And when you hear that prompting, then you can open your mouth. But if you don't feel it, you don't hear it, you just say, hi, how you doing? And talk about something else.
It's okay that I feel like if you're looking for someplace like that and there's nowhere, maybe it's her unction to start something. Like even if it's her own Facebook page, and invite people to come find her that way.
Like a group page.
They're coming to her because they're interested instead of,
Yeah. She wanted me to ask you if you knew of any groups that she could get on, but yeah, I'll talk to her more about that, or you can, either way. But so from the view of those doctrines, the penal substitutionary doctrine, which includes the redemptive view, we discussed the story again of the children of Israel being bit by the serpents and all that stuff, and they weren't happy with the manna. And people can get where they're not happy with just living spiritual stuff all the time. I had a pastor that was teaching the redemptive view, and he was teaching wonderful series, and he would go through like me, and his congregation got tired of it. They didn't want it anymore. They wanted him to preach on healing, on financial miracles. They wanted to go back to that. And so would God send serpents to them? No. But what happens is you allow what the serpents mean to come into your life. And that's why I know that God did not send serpents to the children of Israel. But their murmuring and complaining and not being happy allows consequences to come into their life. And I'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. But what happens, their desiring for meat was that which was not permanent. And people that don't like meat would like to hear that anyways. But it meant that which was not permanent. Rather than manna, and the answer to those who were bitten was a brass serpent then, they said, that was put on a pole for them to look at. And the serpent on the pole was to be a spiritual picture of Jesus. So I've discussed that already there for you. But the serpent in the Bible over and over and over actually reference it to a devil, right? Everywhere you go, it talks about a devil. But yet, for some reason, when they put a serpent on a pole, we were told that that's Jesus. And if you look at Jesus, you will be healed. So, one of the words, and you know it already, I'll ask you if you know it. Do you know what the word for serpent is in the Genesis story?
Nakash.
That's right. Look at that proud look on her face.
It's right there in the notes.
At least I know you're reading in your notes. You little snotty boy. So it was wrongly translated as serpent. Nakash carries this meaning of one's carnally controlled conscious awareness. And when you look it up, it says hissing, or to be contemplating at them. It means to whisper or to speak softly to oneself while seeking to learn from sensory experience. You ever had that happen to yourself? You can hear these thoughts in your head, kind of speaking softly to yourself, and you're learning from your own experience, and you're learning, I don't like that person because they said this about me, or whatever it is. And what happens is they're not leaning to their divine mind. Some people say their God mind. And so to learn from one's own experience rather than depend on the voice of Spirit, you hear a lot of lies. You feel a lot of lies. I mean, how many times do people say, you hurt my feelings, or and we talk about our feelings all the time, but feelings lie a lot. I mean, I've had times where I've thought somebody didn't like me, but it was just my feelings and it wasn't true. I've told this before, and Donna knows it, but back before we met when I was younger, there was a young lady in the church that I thought was very pretty, very nice, and I was just too insecure to ever go invite her out or anything. And I didn't think she would like me. My feelings was that she wouldn't like me anyways. Well, years later, when we became adults, and one time we were talking, and Judy was there and other people were there, and she said, I was wondering, why didn't you ever invite me out? And I said, well, I didn't think you would want to. And she said, I wanted to, but that was a real picture to me of our feelings. And how do you feel about God? That's the biggest feeling that lies to us all the time. And so many times people blame things on God. Or where was God when this happened? Or why isn't God blessing me? And so God must not love me. Or I didn't pay enough tithe. Or the list goes on and on and on. So let's explore some of these other words that were translated as serpent. Does anybody know what Old Testament 8577 is, the word for that? Allie got it again. Give her a star. It's
Never heard of that one.
Tan-need, it's how it's pronounced. And it's a marine or a land monster. It's a sea serpent. So Tan-need was used when it was recorded that Aaron was told to cast his rod on the ground, and then it turned into a sea serpent. That's where that was used. And in front of Pharaoh. And it turned into that land monster. And Exodus 7, 9 through 10, Tan-need is used twice. And next we find the Old Testament 8314, Saraph, and it's pronounced Saraf, SAW-RAWF, and it means burning. So that's what that was when he put something on a pole. It said he put, and I don't know what that actually means, but it said he put burning on the pole. I mean, I was talking to Kay about that, and sometimes when you have a wound or injury, what do? They burn, they heat up a sword, heat up a pole, and put it on the wound, and they heal it. I don't know. And Kay and I was talking a little bit about this, and I said, the more you read these stories, when you finally wake up and you mature, it's like, is any of this true? Because it just does not make sense. Now, I remember when I was a young minister and people would come to me and say, well, this can't be true. And I said, it is true. It's in the Bible.
Right.
I mean, that's what we were taught. The Bible is the infallible word of God, and it is true. But then when you really start searching out spiritual meanings, some of the stuff doesn't make sense. And I'm not going to say there wasn't a Moses and there wasn't an Abraham, and I believe there were real people, but I believe real people can come up with some pretty wild stories. And they do today, all the time. I hear people tell me, whenever they hear that I died twice, they always want to know what I saw. And I really should have just made up a really good story for people. But they want to know if I saw the streets of gold, if I saw Jesus and everything. But then I hear them tell me about, well, I had a friend that died and he saw this and he saw that. And I'm just sitting there thinking, no, he didn't. It's just something that you projected out from your belief systems, because there are no streets of gold.
Well, maybe they saw it and
I know.
their awareness.
I know, but they didn't see it.
Right.
It's like I told you, I saw a woman jumping off of a hospital, and you can't tell me I didn't see it in my head, but I did not see it with my physical eyes. It wasn't really there. Yeah. It was something that I dreamed about or whatever.
Dad, is the root of seraph, is that the same as seraphim?
No, I thought the same thing, and it's not. It is not. That it literally means burning. Now, I Googled it, and then it started talking about how in the Hebrew that they thought it was some kind of serpent for its color and everything. But when you look at the Hebrew word, that's all it says is burning and nothing else.
So there's a different root for seraphim.
Yes, that's a different one. So where Moses said, Father told him to make a pole and fashion that seraph, meaning something burning, is not a snake. And those are the only 4 Hebrew words that's translated serpent rather than the true meaning. So in Greek, we find Old Testament 37:89, and this is really interesting, through the idea of sharpness of vision, in a person being artful in maliciousness. Isn't that interesting? Through the idea of sharpness of vision in a person being artful in maliciousness, hence a carnal vision. And they're really good at being malicious to people. On the other hand, we find the root word NT 3700, optenomia, something like that, atomnia, and it means to gaze at something remarkable with wide eye open, hence spiritual vision. So you have a choice of either one of those.
Weird.
You can be, I know, in that wild, I called Kay and I said, look what I found. And so,
You can have a carnal vision.
so you can choose to be malicious and have a carnal vision and see all things carnal, see all people bad, see everything that we've seen all of our life, or you can gaze at something remarkable, which is Father, which is Spirit, with your wide open eye, which is your third eye, and hence spiritual vision.
And this is all from the word serpent?
All that's every place in the Bible that the word serpent's used, but they're different numbers. OT 3789, and tonight I might go through that on Ecclesia. I think I will, and show everybody that in my Bible program. So 1 Corinthians 22:3, the apostle was warning the people not to allow, when it talked about at least how the serpent beguiled Eve. Remember reading that? But he said he was warning people not to allow an artful and malicious person to beguile them, as was done to Eve, which was people of old, and turn their awareness away from the simple message that Jesus taught them. Because Jesus' message was very simple. I would love to I'm doing my best to translate the book of John, and I've got, I don't know, I think I got five chapters. I don't even know if I've been doing that. But we need to really hear the truth of Jesus' gospel, what he really said. That's why I like looking some at the book of Thomas and some of those other books. Some of them I don't quite understand what they're saying, but still I think there's a lot of stuff hidden in there. So then the next verse says in 2 Corinthians 22:3, it's referring to the artful and malicious person when he said, for if he that comes and preaches another message than what Jesus preached. So he used a he there, but the first verse they put a serpent. So it's not talking about a serpent or a snake or the devil or whatever. It's talking about a he. When you go and you see the word Lucifer in Isaiah, you read about 4 verses down, and it said they're going to look at him and gnarly say, are you the man? And so even these translators, they kind of messed up. They said Lucifer here, but then they go down here and say, are you the man? And you look up the word man, and what would you suppose it says? Anthropos, Adam. So Adam, in his falling in his awareness and passing down his sin consciousness, was the one that brought the nations down. And every time you see the word nation, it means the understanding of man, their conscious awareness, the understanding of man. And so he did not say serpent, he said he. So there was no way that Paul used the word serpent in verse 3 whatsoever. He was talking about malicious-minded people. Don't let them come in and pull you away from the true word of God. And we've all had that happen to us, right? And that kind of goes along with what Isaiah said, cease ye from man whose breath in his nostrils, for what account of is he? They're not worth listening to, if that's all they're teaching. So he knew it was teachers of bad and good who beguiled mankind. And again, I don't blame the teachers. I do a little bit, but it comes from the systems. It comes from the heads of the original religious denominations, and they wrote all their books, Matthew Henry commentary, all those commentaries, and that's why I'm always praying when I'm writing my books, Lord, help me to be accurate, because people are going to believe this. There are people that are going to believe it. And so it came from all that, and so almost every religion there is in Western evangelical Christianity teaches the knowledge of good and bad. And even Buddhism, there's some places where all religions do that. if it's about you and improving yourself, that's bad. If it's about you improving your awareness, then that's spiritual. But really, God doesn't want your good or your bad. Because we don't have to say, well, I've been good this week. And like my mama said once, the reason Roy is so blessed is because he's been so good and he served in the church and he did this and he did that and he did that. Well, those are all dead works. Because if you're doing anything to please God, it's a dead work because God's pleased with you already. Isn't that cool? We're ascertaining, seeking, and desiring to know the Spirit that doesn't require anything from us whatsoever. Nothing. So don't let them beguile you that your conscious awareness should be corrupted. That's what he was saying. And in Revelation 12:9, we discover that the voice of the artful, malicious person is cast out. And it says, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent. So there again, they put a serpent in there, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Ali explain that now. Let me pray. So, what is the voice? What is the voice? The voice spoken by malicious persons is the voice of traducing and accusing thoughts that deceives the entire world. The voice of carnality is cast out, and its messengers speak the same. They're cast out too. In other words, that voice. How is that voice cast out? It was in me at one time. How was it cast out? I had a revelation. I had an epiphany. I had Father speak to me in my car and tell me if I let go of all my talent that I thought was blessing me and everything that I put my faith in and trust him, I would never lack for finances the rest of my life. And I'm going to make you like a Jeremiah. I'm going to give you a word to preach that people won't like, and you'll just keep doing it. And so that voice that I used to preach was cast out. But I ended up with another voice, which was the redemptive view, which wasn't completely correct, right? And so I taught that from 1996 to about 2001 or something like that. And I met Kay Fairchild. And then I started having our church to pray. The Lord really prompted me to pray and ask him, I guess, to teach us how to live out of our spirit. So all of a sudden, I didn't know it, but there was another voice being cast out of me, and that was the redemptive view. And so Kay began to teach it, and we just went up from there. And so we all need some voices cast out of us, right? It's stuff that we say that is not true, and it's not helping anybody whatsoever. So when Moses first entered the tabernacle, he heard a voice speaking from the midst of the cherubim. And cherubim are a type of people who are a people blessing. The rendering of them have wings on them, but they did not have wings on them. They were people. And wings, when it said the wings of them can be heard all the way in the outer court, wings always speak of voices. So the message of the cherubim can be heard by everybody. People in the furthest end of the outer court or people in the redemptive view of the outer court, the voice of the cherubim can be heard if their religious leaders will let them go. And that's what's holding them back at their religious leaders. They won't let them hear. And I can't tell you how many times people say, when I was traveling and things, people say, I really can't let you come to the church because my people can't understand you. And I say, first of all, they're not your people. They're God's people. And God can give them a quick understanding. And they'll say, well, you just don't know. You don't know. And even my pastor that I grew up with 38 years, when I started preaching more truth, he told the congregation, it's kind of like Pastor Roy using Greek words with you guys that you don't even read one book a year. They should have all got up and walked out because that was a big insult on those people. But they need to hear, thus saith the Lord, let my people go. That needs to be heard all over the world. So that's in Numbers 7:89. And then in Ezekiel 1:28, Father spoke to Ezekiel as the voice of one. And I'm showing you several places where the voice of one is talked about. And then according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, John the Baptist spoke as the voice of one. Remember, it said the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make your way, make way for the Son of God. Then, if that's all true, it would be wise for us to hear the voice of one through Father, through our teachers, through our preachers, our comforter messengers, also in our thoughts. That's the most important place you can hear the voice of one is in your thoughts. And make sure that whatever it is, it gives you peace, it gives you comfort, and there's no fear with it. Because if you don't have peace and comfort, and if you have fear, then it's not the voice of one, it's a carnal voice speaking to you, right? And the problem with Moses is he did not listen attentively to the voice when Father gave him instructions what to do and what to say. And remember what the word obey means? It means to listen attentively or to listen intelligently. So when the children of Israel, and remember it means child, if you would, murmured about that manna, like all future generations do, they did not understand the daily supply of manna was enough to nurture their life, all their life, as long as they ate it. Well, then what would manna represent to you? To me, it would represent the Logos, the living Word. And, you know, we're told that we have all things that pertain to life and godliness. And so what we want to do is we want to stop all this suffering from the senses, always wanting something else, and leave our ego-controlled intellect and understanding and feed on the truth. And I've had that happen. Other ministers have had that happen where people don't want to hear certain things. They don't like to hear certain ministers. I've had people say, I'll listen to Brother Hibbard, but I'm not going to listen to you because he's the head pastor. And people don't want to listen to certain messages because they want to hear something that meets their need. So if they have financial problems, they want to find somebody that's preaching on how to get wealth. And that's what used to. We don't see it that much anymore, but we used to have all kinds of meetings advertised all over the place where people would come to for healing ministries, for finances, for deliverance, right? There's all kinds of ministries like that. And I believe they're still out there, but not as much. But even though there are some real experiences in those meetings, not one of those experiences brings permanence like the Logos will, like what we have today, feeding on the truth of the Word, learning who we are. And Jesus said that what he taught was the way, it was the truth, and it was the life. They wrote on there, he said, I am the truth, I am the way and the life. But literally he said, I exist that way. Remember the I and shall many times as I exist. So he said, I exist this way, and I'm here to show you how to live. And I'm telling you, if somebody can show me how to live, I want to spend a lot of time with them. And Father can do that for us. So Zoe life can also be seen as symbolizing this eternal aspect of life that transcends what we see on the outward. All this, you know, there are people that say all this is just an illusion around us. Well, I don't believe that. I believe it's real, but it doesn't bring any permanence to me. It all can be blown away overnight, you know, or it can be burned down or whatever. But when we align with the energy of Zoe life, we cultivate this deep sense of purpose, this deep sense of awareness and a spiritual evolution that their journey toward enlightenment. And again, just because I say I'm looking for enlightenment doesn't mean I'm better than you or anybody else. I'm talking about my awareness. But my awareness affects the outer part of me, the visible spirit, and how we can live. So we can escape this the hard conditions that make martyrs out of believers. And a lot of ministers became martyrs. There's a book called The Book of Martyrs, and I think it's in that PC Bible program that I gave you guys. And you can see how all the disciples were martyred, how many people were martyred for their belief. But I also believe sometimes we get martyred because we spoke when we shouldn't have spoke. We don't listen to Spirit all the time. We want to go in like a raving, bull and just start unloading everything that you know about people. And you end up being martyred, not necessarily physical death, but martyred in people's perception of you and view of you, and people begin to talk about you. And when I was younger, I was kind of like that. I just went in and told them everything I knew, and next thing you know, they wouldn't have me back. But I thought they needed to hear it, and I was wrong. So we can escape that by entering into the Zoe life, which is a calm and quiet attitude, and then we let Spirit work in silence and speak to us as the voice of one, or speak through us as the voice of one. And I believe I've more and more got to that place where I can wait until I hear speak, and then I do it. Many times, my favorite place to talk to people is Walmart, right? When I'm out shopping. But there are times that I look at somebody, I see somebody, and I want to say something, but I don't hear go. I don't hear that click in me. I don't know what to say is what it is. But if it is, I hear what I should say. And then that opens the door. So the best thing for us to do is all through our life, stay calm, quiet, and silent. No matter what they say about us, even if it's your best friend turns against you, stay calm and quiet and realize it's not about you, it's about them. Yes. That's hard to do sometimes, isn't it? So we carry a silent force on the right side of our brain. Kate talks about right brain, left brain, and which can manifest in our daily lives if we allow that to happen. Spirit can always manifest. We're the ensign. That's who we are. The ensign means waymark. It means banner. It means this is the way, walk you in it. Christopher, when you're going to a hotel, one of the main things you're looking for when you get close to it is a sign, right? And you're looking all over the place, and you say, oh, there's a sign saying Hilton Inn this way, exit so-and-so or whatever. So that's a waymark. And we're in a world today where people need banners. They need a banner-minded person. They need a branch man, like I talked about last week. We're willing to say, hey, if you're having a problem, I can show you something that'll help you. And I've been through what you've been through, or I don't know what you're going through, but I know you're having a hard time. I've had hard times before. Or, I used to be afraid of God. I used to think God was doing stuff to me, but I found out something. You mind if I share it with you? That's what that is. That's what signs are. They're beautiful. They have pictures of their swimming pools. They have all this stuff to say, this is where you want to come. This is nice. And I believe that's what we need to be doing, more and more and more. So what happens again is too many times we want to argue with people. We want to debate with people. We want to prove to people that we're right. And that's a kind of a hard thing for me to sometimes. I have to resist that a lot, because sometimes people will get on my page and they'll start arguing with what I'm saying, and then I want to go on there and answer them and all that. And I found out it doesn't do any good, because they're going to just keep it going. So I just say, I understand. And then sometimes we have to use the block button. It's really nice. I wish I would have had that in church before. No, block, you can't come no more. I'm joking, folks. Hi, Kathy, glad you're watching. And so,
they're going to believe you.
No, they're not. In Malachi 3:10, we talk about this a lot, but this is where a lot of preachers love this, because they like to quote it as the tithing. And in fact, I've been to churches where they print it out on their tithe envelope and they do it completely wrong. On the tithe envelope, it says, if you will bring your tithe into the storehouse, I will open the windows of heaven up to you. It doesn't say that. It says, I will open you up as a window of heaven. And then it says, I will pour out a blessing to you. And they totally twist it around. And I think they believe that's what it says, and they never even look in their Bible to see that it doesn't say that. But in Malachi, it talks about, and of course, back then there were priests, and the priests had to have support, so they were supposed to bring meat and food to them and help them. But he said, you robbed me of that, but the spiritual meaning of that, the meat is the Logos. So if you'll feed on the Logos, then Father will open you up. And again, it's Father's job. I can't emphasize this, because too many people get a little heavy-revy, and all of a sudden they think they're ready to go out and save the whole world. But you've got to wait until Father opens you up. to the world. But he will make you the window of heaven. And that means that the creative spiritual activity that reveals the law of the Spirit of abundant life will pour out of you anytime it's needed. And so that's what happens to me at Walmart or whatever. Father opens me up. And then sometimes I stay closed in that event. And so there's this perpetual river that flows out of us to all who hunger for more and more and more. And I happen to believe they're all over the world. I believe there's people all over the place where we go to if we're willing to say, Father, here I am, send me. When I'm getting gas, and I say this quite often, when I'm getting gas, if there's a person next to me that needs to hear something, prompt me to say, hello, how are you? And I do that anyways, but prompt me to know that this person needs something. And I trust if I say, how are you? And if there's a struggle in their life, and they'll probably say, not real well right now, or whatever it is they say that causes you to be able to open up and be a blessing to them. So enthusiastic seekers of spiritual truth should not stop conversations with people, right? We should still converse with people, but we should seek to be wise and to be discreet. We should listen to the voice of Spirit again to know when to speak or when to be silent. And this manner of working here brings harmony inside of you, and you're comfortable with whatever you're doing. And again, as I said a minute ago, we harm people when they're not ready to hear greater spiritual understanding. And when I first thought I knew everything in the world, which I did not, I discovered there was no such thing as a rapture. And so I ran to all my friends that believed in a rapture and told them there was no such thing. And I lost several friends then. And even to this day, they don't want to hear what I'm teaching because I took the rapture away. But there was nothing to replace it with. You shouldn't take anything from somebody unless you have something to replace it with. Does that make sense? You know, and people do that all the time. So I believe the ensigns that bring people from these places listed in Isaiah, which we will still continue to go through them, they're comforter messengers who they equipped other people to do the work of the ministry in the world. That's what I do. My mission mandated ministry is to equip people that have come to me to do the same work of the ministry. And it's a multi-level marketing program, if you would, to go to these cities, to go to the islands. And I'm talking about these people with these awarenesses and let them know that you have something that's better that can help them. So people are not having problems with these countries I've talked about, but they're having problems with what they allegorically mean, which we've talked about. And they're being brought out of that trouble because Father is lifting up a standard. Father is lifting up an ensign and a people. And the question is that you? Are you the ones they're looking for? And I believe they are. Amen? Amen. I believe that. And it's really nice to be people that other people can turn to and we've got something to give them. It's just like me in the medical field. I'm tired of going to doctors that can't do anything for me. All they can say is, well, this pill might work or that pill, but I would love to go to a doctor that's spiritually minded, that he listens to the Spirit of God, and he says, you know what, I think this is what needs to happen, and I think it can cure you. I'll never forget a little lady named Sister Garner at Full Gospel Assembly, and she was losing her eyesight. And the doctor just tried everything in the world. He couldn't help her. He went home one night and he prayed. And he asked the Lord tell me what to do for Miss Gardner. I know there's something I can do to help her. And he had a dream that night. He took blood out of her arm and he put 3 drops of blood in each eye and put a bandage on and said, wait 3 days and take them off and come see me. And so he woke up and he said he just knew it was from God, so he did it. And he said, this is not a medical treatment. I had a dream about this. And he said, I don't think it can hurt you. And she did it, and she took the bandages off and she can see. I believe we can hear that about every problem there is. Sometimes it might be an odd thing to say or whatever, but I believe Father can move in very unusual ways if we would be willing to cooperate. Amen?
Yes.
All right. Appreciate you being here. I didn't go an hour, did I?
Yep.
Good. Next week I'll go to her. Huh?
I'm laughing. You're like, I have a few more minutes. What can I talk about?
I got, yeah, what can I talk about? I got more. I know I got more time. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Esther. Love you guys. See all you guys on Ecclesia tonight if you're part of our ministry team, and we're having a lot of fun. If you're interested, reach out to me. I'm showing people how to use the PC Bible program and look up the words like we're looking up when I teach, and how to find out where the Bible is mistranslated. Rita said it's not over. All right. Bless you guys.